Have you ever walked across your lawn and thought, where did this grass really come from? I mean, it's just grass, right? But turns out there's a whole story behind it, especially here in Florida. And today we're diving into one of the biggest players in your backyard, St. Augustine Grass. Welcome to Old Florida Now. I'm your host, Bo Carter. And yeah, we're going to get into the history and the science behind this green stuff that covers like half the state. We'll talk about how it ended up being the grass of choice and what makes it so special in Florida's unique landscape. Stick around. We've got a lot to cover, and you might even learn a thing or two about your own lawn you didn't know before. Let's get started.
Welcome to Old Florida Now, where we uncover the rich history and hidden stories of the Sunshine State. Each episode will explore the people, places, and events that shaped Florida's past. Let's dive in.
So to kick things off, let's go back to the origins of St. Augustine Grass, or as it's scientifically called, Stenotrophorum secundatum. It's native to the Gulf of Mexico regions, the Caribbean, and even parts of Africa, which makes sense, right? Because it's a grass that loves warm, humid climates. Now, we're not exactly sure when St. Augustine grass first arrived in Florida, but we know that it was used pretty early on by indigenous peoples and Spanish settlers. The Spanish especially had a hand in its spread. They brought a lot of plants and animals with them when they colonized the region. They saw how well it handled the sandy soils and harsh sun. So it just made sense for them to use it for pastures and livestock grazing. But it wasn't exactly the lawn staple we know today, right? So fast forward a bit, and we start seeing more widespread use of St. Augustine grass in Florida's lawns and public spaces. Why? Well, as I said, it's all about that Florida climate. As you probably know, our state is warm and humid for most of the year, perfect for warm season grasses like St. Augustine. Now, Florida's climate has some, let's call them challenges when it comes to landscaping. It's hot, it's muggy, and so much rain, especially in the summer. A lot of plants just don't thrive in that environment. But St. Augustine, it's like built for this stuff. It can handle the heat, the humidity, and even the occasional salty air we get near the coast. And speaking of the challenges, one thing to mention is that it's not the easiest grass to maintain. It needs a lot of water and can be pretty susceptible to pests and diseases, but it's still preferred because it's durable, it's lush, and it covers ground really well. And I found this interesting. It wasn't just a practical choice. It kind of became part of Florida's culture as the state started developing, especially in the 20th century when suburban growth really took off. St. Augustine grass was like the choice for front lawns and backyards. The Florida look kind of depended on it. I even came across these anecdotes from the early 1900s where it was like advertised as the go-to grass for that lush green aesthetic, the kind of lawn that just says, welcome to paradise, right? One story that caught my attention was about how people in developing neighborhoods during the 1920s were basically rolling out St. Augustine sod as a sign of progress. Like, hey, we're building a future here and it's going to be green, dang it. And I mean, it worked. St. Augustine grass really helped define that suburban image we still associate with Florida homes today. So yeah, it became a cultural thing, not just a landscaping choice. All right, so let's talk about how the University of Florida really stepped up when it came to improving St. Augustine grass. Now, if you're not familiar with UF's Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences, or IFAS as it's more commonly known, it's been around for, over a century. IFAS is like the go-to for agricultural research in the state. Their mission has always been to support agriculture and environmental sciences, and they've done a lot to help us better understand and manage turf grass like St. Augustine. Back in the early 20th century, IFAS started focusing on turf grass management, including St. Augustine grass. Now, you might be thinking, okay, it's grass. How hard could that be? But believe me, there were a lot of challenges. St. Augustine grass faced all kinds of issues like pests. Oh, and chinch bugs were a big one, and diseases like brown patch and later on mosaic virus. These things really made maintaining a healthy lawn difficult. So IFAS researchers got to work. They started with basic studies looking at things like how much water the grass needed, how to handle pest infestations, and even how to manage diseases like brown patch and mosaic virus. One of the big breakthroughs was the development of different cultivars or varieties of St. Augustine grass specifically designed to resist these issues. For example, the Floratom variety, which was developed in the 1970s through a partnership between UF and Texas A&M. It was bred to resist chinch bugs and some of the fungal diseases that were wreaking havoc on Florida lawns. But it wasn't just about pests. The researchers also faced challenges with the grass's reaction to Florida's unpredictable weather, whether it was drought, too much rain, or salty coastal winds. IFAS put a lot of effort into figuring out how to breed grass that could handle these conditions better. And all this research, it still continues today with IFAS working on newer strains like Citra Blue and Provista, which offer better drought and shade tolerance and even need less mowing. So, yeah. The University of Florida's research has been super important in making sure that St. Augustine grass stays the lawn of choice here in the state. Without IFAS stepping in, I think a lot of us would be dealing with some pretty sad-looking lawns, you know? Okay, so let's dive into how we got some of the most popular St. Augustine grass varieties we see today. First off, back in the 1950s, researchers developed the Floratine cultivar, which really stood out because of its finer texture and shade tolerance. It became a favorite for residential landscaping, especially in areas where shade was a bit of an issue. You know, a lot of older neighborhoods with big trees. Yeah, Floratine worked really well there. Then fast forward to 1973, and the University of Florida teamed up with Texas A&M to create Floratom. This was a big deal because Floratom was specifically bred to resist the St. Augustine decline virus and chinch bugs, which were major issues back then. Floratom, as you probably know, became the most widely used variety, not just here in Florida, but all over the southern U.S. It's known for its thicker blades and ability to withstand harsh conditions, though the chinch bugs have kind of adapted to it over time. But still, it's a durable, reliable option for home lawns. Now, aside from Floratom, we've got some other cool cultivars like Seville, which came out later and is known for its finer blades and really good shade tolerance, better than most, actually. It's got that nice carpet-like feel, making it perfect for residential lawns. Then there's Palmetto, which is also great for shady spots and has good drought tolerance. And more recently, there's Captiva, which was developed to have better resistance to chinch bugs. I was reading about the process for breeding these grasses, and it's no small feat. Researchers have to account for things like disease resistance, drought tolerance, shade tolerance, well, you name it. And it's all about, finding the right balance to make sure the grass can thrive in Florida's pretty harsh conditions. All right, folks. So we've talked about the grass itself, but what about the stuff that wants to kill your St. Augustine lawn? Let's start with one of the biggest threats, especially here in Florida. I mentioned it, but it's the southern chinch bug. These little guys are a major pest. They're tiny, but they do some serious damage. Basically, they feed on the grass by sucking out the fluids, and that causes the grass to turn yellow and then die. You'll see these brown patches that just keep getting bigger as they spread through the lawn. Now, these bugs are active pretty much year-round, but they really go crazy during the warmer months. So, yeah, most of the year in Florida. The best thing you can do is catch them early. IFAS has some great resources for identifying and managing chinch bugs, including tips on how to look for them. You can even use a handheld vacuum to suck up a patch of grass and see if you spot any of the bugs in the debris. It sounds weird, but it works. And it's not just bugs we have to worry about. There's also diseases like gray leaf spot, which is a fungal disease that can really mess up your lawn. This disease loves warm, wet weather. And, well, that's basically Florida's rainy season. UF's recommendations for dealing with this include proper irrigation management, like watering in the morning to avoid the grass staying wet overnight, and being careful with nitrogen fertilizers. Too much of that can make things worse. And now here's where the University of Florida really comes in handy. Their integrated pest management, or IPM strategies, focus on reducing the use of chemical pesticides by combining cultural, biological, and, when necessary, chemical controls. This means things like adjusting your mowing height, controlling thatch, and encouraging natural predators of pests like the big-eyed bug, which actually eats chinch bugs. UF researchers are also doing some pretty cool genetic work to breed St. Augustine varieties that are more resistant to these pests and diseases. They're combining traditional breeding methods with modern biotech to create cultivars that can better withstand the stuff that usually kills them. It's a pretty exciting time in turf grass research, and it's really helping homeowners and lawn care professionals stay ahead of the game. All right, let's talk about something that's super important when it comes to St. Augustine grass, its environmental impact. Now, if you've ever maintained a lawn in Florida, you know that St. Augustine grass has some pretty high water requirements. It needs consistent irrigation to stay green, especially during the dry months. UF's researchers have been working on breeding more drought-tolerant varieties of St. Augustine grass, like Citra Blue, which requires less water and is more resistant to drought and heat. But it's not just the water usage we need to think about. It's also the fertilizer runoff. When people over-fertilize their lawns, that extra nitrogen and phosphorus can run off into Florida's waterways, leading to problems like algae blooms and poor water quality. UF has developed best management practices, or BMPs, that help people apply fertilizers in a way that minimizes runoff. These BMPs are part of Florida's efforts to keep our waters clean while still allowing for healthy lawns. Now, UF's Florida-friendly landscaping program is also doing some amazing work by promoting alternative ground covers and native plants that use less water and require fewer chemicals than traditional lawns. They're really encouraging people to think about sustainable landscaping, using plants that are better suited to Florida's environment. You know, less mowing, less watering, and fewer fertilizers. It's a win-win for homeowners and the environment. So while St. Augustine grass will always have a place in Florida landscaping, it's great to know that there are efforts being made to make it more sustainable, and there are other options if you want a lawn that's easier on the planet. All right, let's shift gears and talk about the outreach and educational programs that UF-IFAS offers to homeowners, landscapers, and the turfgrass industry. Now, one thing UF does really well is making sure the latest research doesn't just sit in a lab, but actually gets into the hands of the people who need it, whether that's folks taking care of their lawns or professionals in the green industry. UF-IFAS has extension services in every county in Florida, and they offer a ton of resources like workshops, seminars, and publications. These cover everything from basic lawn care tips to advanced turf management strategies. Homeowners can learn about sustainable practices like proper irrigation and fertilization, which not only help keep their lawns healthy, but also reduce environmental impacts like nutrient runoff into waterways. What's really cool is how UF-IFAS collaborates with the turfgrass industry. They work closely with sod producers and lawn care companies to make sure new grass varieties like Floratam or Citra Blue meet both performance standards and industry needs. It's a real partnership. Plus, with the turfgrass industry contributing nearly $8 billion to Florida's economy, this collaboration has a huge economic impact. And we're talking about thousands of jobs from sod farms to golf courses, so it's a big deal for the state. All right, let's talk about the future of St. Augustine grass and where research is heading. So one of the big areas of focus right now is genomic studies. UF-IFAS researchers are diving into the genetics of St. Augustine grass to improve traits like disease resistance and drought tolerance. They're looking at how different genes influence things like growth patterns and resilience, which could lead to more robust varieties down the line. And with climate change being such a huge issue, there's a lot of research into how St. Augustine grass can adapt to rising temperatures and increasing salinity from sea level rise. Florida, with its heat and coastal areas, is kind of ground zero for figuring out how turf can handle these challenges. Researchers are working on breeding grasses that can tolerate more heat and salt, so your lawn won't just like shrivel up during the summer or near the coast. On the innovation side, UF is also exploring some really cool tech for turf management. Smart irrigation systems, for example, are being designed to reduce water waste by only watering when and where it's needed. They're using sensors to measure soil moisture and adjust water levels accordingly. And we're even seeing drones and precision agriculture playing a role in turf maintenance. Drones can monitor large areas, spot issues early, like disease or drought stress, and apply treatments super precisely, which means less water, fewer chemicals, and healthier turf. So yeah, between genomics, climate adaptation, and these high-tech management tools, either the future of St. Augustine grass looks pretty bright. We're really just scratching the surface with what technology can do to make turf grass more sustainable. So let's get into some of the more controversial aspects of St. Augustine grass. First off, there's this ongoing debate about whether St. Augustine grass, which is non-native to Florida, should even be as widely used as it is. While it's not technically classified as invasive, it's still considered a non-native species, and some argued that it contributes to environmental issues by pushing out native plants. Critics say this creates less biodiversity, which impacts wildlife and ecosystems. Plus, there's the fact that it requires a lot of water to maintain, especially in our hot Florida summers. In recent years, there's been a push for using more native plants in place of turf grass. Native species not only support local ecosystems better, but they also tend to be more drought tolerant, meaning they need less water, something we're running low on. It's why programs like IFAS's Florida-friendly landscaping have gained traction, promoting alternatives to traditional lawns and encouraging homeowners to reduce their water usage and chemical inputs. And then you have the regulatory changes like local ordinances aimed at restricting when and how much you can water or fertilize your lawn. These rules are part of the effort to protect Florida's water resources from runoff. IFAS plays a huge role in informing these policies, providing research and data to help guide local governments in making decisions that balance environmental sustainability with homeowners' needs. So there's definitely a shift happening. More people are starting to question whether keeping these green, manicured lawns is worth the environmental cost. And we might see a bigger push toward native landscaping in the future. But I see that like way down the road. All right, folks, as we wrap up today's deep dive into St. Augustine grass, let's take a moment to recap the huge impact that the University of Florida has had on this turf, from developing new cultivars like Floratom and Citra Blue to spearheading research on pest and disease resistance. UF has been at the forefront of making sure Florida's most iconic grass thrives in our unique environment. Their work has been key in helping us balance our love for green lawns with the realities of Florida's climate and ecological challenges. Looking ahead, I think it's pretty clear that the future of St. Augustine grass will continue to evolve as IFAS researchers focus on things like drought tolerance and smart irrigation technologies. Plus, with the growing interest in sustainable landscaping, there's definitely going to be more emphasis on reducing water and chemical use while still keeping our lawns healthy. So, if today's episode got you thinking about how to manage your lawn or maybe even explore alternatives, I highly encourage you to check out the resources IFAS has to offer. Whether you're a homeowner or a professional, they've got workshops, publications, and extension services that can really help you make informed decisions. So thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope you found this episode as fascinating as I did, and be sure to join us next time on Old Florida. Now, we've got a lot more Florida history to explore. Until next time, keep it green, Florida.
Thanks for listening to Old Florida Now. Stay tuned for more stories from the Sunshine State's past. Until next time.